Recording. Okay, now we're going to go live on Facebook. There we go.
Pardon me.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, let me just double check and then we will get started. Just got to make sure the tech is all working.
Perfect.
All over the interwebs. Yes, I think we're good. Okay. All right. Welcome, Tina. I am so excited. Let me just find you again here. There we go. So many windows open. Okay. Yay. Okay. Hello, everybody. I am so excited to have my dear BFF, Tina Cufaro, here with me today. Tina is not only one of my best friends, but she is a women's mental health advocate and really a mentor and also a nutritionist like myself. And I invited her here to talk to us today a little bit about some natural and effective strategies for really calming the anxious mind, right? A lot of the times the relationships, the unhealthy relationships we get into with food are closely related to anxiety, stress, overwhelm, all of that stuff, right? So I felt like it would be great to have Tina come on and talk to us a little bit about how we can safely and naturally and effectively maybe manage some of that anxiety, some of those mood swings, and just bring back some peace into our lives so that we're in a better position to make healthier choices with food. So welcome, Tina.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you.
Okay, so let's get started. Why don't you just introduce yourself a little bit, if there's anything I left out about who you are and what you do, and then I'd love to hear a little bit about your story, because I know, being your friend, that you have you've had your own journey to this place, to where you are now, or the way you support women in this way. It's a very personal journey for you. So I'd love to hear love it if you could share that story a little bit with our viewers.
Okay. I'm already feeling,
it's good. It's good. It's love.
It's an interesting story. And well, like you said, I've shared some of it with you. Some of it's been sad and some of it's a bit funny now that I can talk on it. So, I mean, knowing what I know now, and much like you, I think my health journey started way back, like when I was a child, but I'm not going to go quite that far, though. There were digestive issues and sleep issues. Now, looking back, even when I was, in the single digits, like when I was 5, 6, 7, and I was on antibiotics quite frequently during a time in my life. So moving forward, and now knowing what I know, it all kind of makes sense. So most recently, I'll say, okay, so we're now in 2018. So for about 5.5 years, I was actually on sleep medications, and it was actually the off-label use for an anti-anxiety, which I actually wasn't even aware of at the time. So I did all the things that I needed to do. I went to my physician, I went to an internist, I went to the sleep clinic, I did all the stuff. And no one really had any answers for me. So I was so desperate just to be knocked out. I just wanted to be knocked out at night, because I was lucky if I was getting a few hours of sleep at night. And I couldn't really figure out why, though I knew part of my anxious nature contributed to that. So I experimented with a couple of different meds, and I was just happy just to shut down for like 8 hours and then wake up the next day. So I remember, a turning point, well, first, actually, let me take a step back. So when I first got one particular medication, and this is the story that I told you, I was in my kitchen, and they said, and it was suggested to take about half an hour before you're planning on going to bed. And so I was, the maximum dose was 3 of these pills. So of course, what did I do? I just wanted to go to bed. I just wanted to be knocked out for the night. So 3. And so help me, I'm just, tidying up at my kitchen counter, and it was like, oh my God, it was like the world, like everything was just sort of blurry. And I thought, oh my God, like I have to get up to bed. And it just goes to show you what these kind of medications, how it can affect you. I mean, I had a sofa not 10 feet away from me, but for some reason I had the need to crawl myself up to bed. And to this day, I don't remember how I got up to my bed. I know I got there because the next morning, that's where I woke up. And so I did that for about, I didn't do the maximum dose, but anyways, I was doing that for about 5.5 years. And to be honest, I became pretty addicted to the idea of that and the whole idea behind trying to sleep. I developed further anxiety just around the whole bedroom routine. And I would get anxious knowing, okay, 8 o'clock is coming, 9 o'clock is coming, despite even having the medications. And then at one point, the dosage that was working for me eventually wasn't. And I was starting to up those meds, right? Now, during this time, I started to go to nutrition school. And there was this course, one of the courses was about mental health. And that's when I really had an aha moment, because no one told me. I didn't know what I didn't know. I had no idea that digestive health, imbalanced hormones, unbalanced sugar, and these are all things that I was experiencing. Little did I know this was affecting my ability to sleep, my ability to remain calm. It affected how I worried, my anxious thoughts, and even my really low moods at times. So I experimented with protocols. I was kind of my own guinea pig. My doctor did know that I was, and she encouraged me to try and get off of them because it had been a long time. And it took me about 8.5 months, almost a year, really, to be completely off of them. But I finally did it through some supplementing, through sleep hygiene, through mindfulness practices. And today, like I'm really glad to say it's been a little over 2 years since I've been off of them. So,
and you're sleeping.
And I'm sleeping. Yeah, I'm sleeping so much better. And, full transparency, there are times when I stop taking care of myself, I stop those self-care routines, my sleep is one of the first things to go. I know that I'm not doing all the right things. So I just needed to share that with other women. It's really important because I don't think we often don't have all of the information available to us. And it's really important. We need to be able to be empowered with that and to make informed decisions about our mental health. Yeah.
Yeah. And to know that there's other options or other things you can try and do and expand,
Absolutely. Yeah, there is a lot out there. And I think the key is to do what's right for you. Right?
Yeah. Okay, good. I love it. Now, I know that you have a very cute motto, which is, it's not all in your head. And I love that whole you have a really unique approach to mental health in general, in terms of anxiety, sleep, all of those pieces. So talk a little bit about what that means to you to say that it's not all in your head, and how that shapes your approach to this whole world.
Okay. So it's funny, I never had considered, I had only considered one perspective of it's not all in your head when I think you and we were talking about it.
Yeah.
I had never considered that. And now that you mentioned, so it's not all in your head. So the one perspective, so there are two now. One is that how often are we told that when we're feeling something or thinking something, we're having a very intimate experience, because that's what it is, right? When we're having all of these emotions towards something. How often are you told to either, to suck it up, or it's all it's all in your head. You're just imagining it. It's really being.
Or you go to your doctor and your doctor runs all the tests and everything's normal. So
how often does that happen? How often does that happen, right?
Yeah.
So what you're feeling and what you're thinking is really being disqualified. Yeah. But the fact is that's your reality, and it shouldn't be disqualified or illegitimized. It's true. It's true. That is what your reality is. And so that acceptance of that, and really embracing that is what we are experiencing, or what a woman is experiencing, is to be true. And there's that aspect of it, and really respecting that, and taking it from that, moving forward with mindfulness practices and other things. And then the other part, the physiological part, often like the general medical model, as we all know, well, if someone is diagnosed with depression, and I'm not a therapist, I'm not an MD, I don't diagnose mental health in any way. If you're diagnosed, let's say, by your MD or by your family physician, or let's say a psychiatrist, for example, that you have depression, often is the case that you have low serotonin. You don't have enough serotonin. You don't have enough serotonin in your head, in your brain. You're not making enough. So here's a prescription, right? And I've been there. I've taken antidepressants. I've taken anti-anxieties. I've taken the sleep meds. I've been there. I get it when you're feeling those feelings and you just don't know what else to do. That can be a lifeline, right? Just the fact that you know that you can take something potentially to make you feel better. But now, as we're moving forward, I would say maybe over the last 10 years, we've come to realize that there's so much more than this neck up approach. So it's not all in your head. It's not just about these chemical imbalances. It's not like your dopamine and your serotonin and all of these things. It's not just about that, because we now know that gut health and hypothyroidism and food allergies and heart disease and unbalanced blood glucose, we know all of these play really vital roles in your mood. And if that's out of whack, then emotionally you're not going to feel resilient. You're not going to feel strong. You're not going to feel even capable of tackling your everyday life. So that's the other aspect of it. It's not just about what's going on from the neck up. It's really a whole body approach. So,
yeah. I love that. I love that. It's so important. And I think it really is something that sort of the typical Western model, at least for lack of a better word, kind of misses, right? Because like you say, it's like they just think, okay, something is wrong in your head, so we'll prescribe something to fix that, and there you go. But there's so many more pieces to the puzzle.
And what's interesting is, and I know that, prescriptions, medications, they're making advances, but typically, an antidepressant takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to actually start to take effect.
Wow.
Well, think about that for a second, right? So, you go to your physician, and your physician diagnoses you with depression. You're given this prescription. But what do you kind of do in the meantime? Like, where are the tools, right, to be coping with all of that in the meantime? And where are the tests to be done to see if, in fact, your serotonin is what's out of whack?
Right.
Like, well, you go in and, okay, well, here's a tricyclic, or here's, an SSRI, and away you go. And that's not to say there are people out there who need and who swear that they do better on them. And I like I said, I've been there, and I think there's a place for it, certainly. But yeah, we need more tools in our toolbox. We need to know that there's much more to consider than just taking those meds. What do you do in the meantime? That, if you do decide to take the meds, what do you do that 6-week interval in the meantime to help contribute to, your sense of well-being? Because if you've already reached your maximum capacity to handle anything, and you're still told, okay, you have to wait another 6 weeks. Well, what do you do, right?
Yeah. And so let's talk about that a bit before we dive into some of the sort of the more natural, like the food and exercise and other interesting things that you're going to share with us today. But let's just talk a little bit of a caveat about prescription medications. So for people who are watching that are taking prescription meds, what is your philosophy on the role that they play and how these things go together?
Well, again, like I said, I come from a place where I've taken them all at separate times in my life, and the anti-anxieties were incredibly helpful to me. But so my philosophy is this. I mean, if you're on your medication, I am not qualified, and nor should you take it upon yourself to get yourself off of that medication. I'm not qualified to suggest it to anybody. I'm a nutritionist. That's not where my training lies. If that's something that you want to do, you need to speak to your physician, whoever it is that prescribed it, because in order to get off of these medications, you really need to be monitored closely.
Yeah.
You're talking about mind-altering medication here, right? So imagine what can be going on as you're trying to get off of them. And it's a very, very slow process. And like I told you, it took me almost truly, I would say a whole year before I was off of my medications. So people do what they feel that they need to do. Everyone has their own journey. Everyone needs to do what they feel is best for them. And so for me, for people who are on medications, if they want me to work with them along with their physician to either supplement that in a more natural way while they're also on the medications, or if they have sought approval from their physician to get off of those medications, there is a way to also supplement, and through food, through mindfulness practices, through supplementation, to make it a much more smooth transition. Because getting off of those medications, you can have really, really nasty rebound effects, right? Like,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
funky when you're getting
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good. I'm glad that it's good to clarify that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we're both nutritionists, so let's start with food. Our favorite topic. So when it comes to supporting our minds, what do we need to be thinking about in terms of nutrients and the food that we're putting in our bodies?
So I'll talk about a couple things, because we could be
we could be here all day. But yeah, just a couple of what are like, if people could only think of like, remember, say a couple of things, what should they really be remembering?
For sure. So okay, so maybe not so much about in this particular case certain types of food, but when you're eating your food. So that's one thing to consider. Because I was talking to you about blood glucose, and that was part of my issue. I learned as I was going through my own journey. Balancing your blood glucose is super important when you're talking about also balancing your mood. Quite often, those highs and lows that you're feeling, that kind of those kind of anxious feelings that you get, that you're feeling more in your body. You kind of feel like in your chest might be feeling tight, or you're feeling it in your stomach, which is a common physical symptom, I'll say, people who experience anxiety. Really consider eating regularly, because if you're not doing that, and if you're not doing with whole foods, like, that's the quality of your food does matter, but specifically making sure that you're eating at regular intervals. And each individual, that depends. I mean, some people are better at 3 hours, some people are better at 4 hours. It's something that you have to play around with. But if you're not maintaining your blood glucose throughout the day, that is also going to affect your blood glucose at night. So you're not going to sleep well either, which then is also going to contribute to your unbalanced moods. So when you eat, and making sure you're eating at regular intervals is really important. And so then, going back to the quality of food, like having those whole foods, I mean, that's something that we stress all the time as nutritionists, right? We talk about that so frequently. If you're having food that is deplete of nutrients, well then, imagine if that's what you're putting in your body, then what are you actually really feeding your body, and then therefore feeding your brain? I'm sorry, but it's garbage.
Yeah.
It really is. And so, if what I'm going to do, walk around. I ask everyone to do this. So in Canada, we have blue bins. We have our recycle bins.
Right.
Okay. That's a great indication. If you look around to see what kind of containers are in people's blue bins, that's a great indication of what people are putting in their body, right? I've taken in my own neighborhood. I've done like, look, what's in here. Pretty amazing to think that, those packaged foods, like they are depleted of any nutrients, and we really have to start realizing that what you're feeding your body is in fact what you're feeding your brain, and ultimately what you're doing for your emotional health. There's no separation. They don't act in isolation of one another. So foods that that support brain function and your nervous system, therefore your mood and your emotional well-being. The B vitamins are huge. They're very supportive of your nervous system. So having whole grains is a fantastic way. A lot of animal protein does have the Bs as well. So making sure that you get your B vitamins, because your B vitamins also will help your body utilize the nutrients, the carbohydrates, the fats, and all of that in order to create energy and to therefore if you're able to get energy in the form of glucose, you're able to also feed your brain in that way as well. So that again goes to, balancing your sugar levels in your body. And again, because it does support your nervous system. That's a major aspect of it as well. And I would say, one thing that I think that many people still shy away from, despite the fact that there's a lot more information out there, is having fats in your diet. Right? It's still, right? Like, I don't know. Do you find that people still shy away from?
Totally. And I try to push the fat, and people are so afraid. They're still in the old days where like eating fat is going to make you fat. And it's a big mindset shift to really, I think it's starting to happen. Certainly we're seeing that, but I mean, for so many reasons, like you say, I mean, having more fat is so important. But yeah, people are afraid to eat more fat.
They really are. And it's often the wrong kind of fats too, right? We have to really be.
Yes. Not all fat is created equal.
Exactly. Yummy trans fats. and all of those, in all of those packaging that I see in the blue bins.
Yes.
God, but like really good fats like the avocado and like the coconut oil and like the nuts and the seeds, right? And olive oil. Olive oil has the polyunsaturated fats. Olive oil is like a really huge one that's actually even been researched. And so I know people shy away from it because they worry about the calories, they worry about the caloric intake. But the fact of the matter is, your brain needs the fat. Your body needs the fats in order to synthesize hormones. And if your hormones are out of balance, especially as women, that is something that we deal with on a very regular basis. Like things on a monthly basis. You're experiencing PMS, if you are approaching menopause, if you're perimenopausal, even teenagers. I mean, it runs the gamut. As women, we really need to make sure we're getting good quality fats in our diet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would honestly recommend supplementing with a good quality fatty acid, with something like the EPA and the DHA, right? So your omega-3s, right? We don't get
like a fish oil or algae oil.
Or the algae oil, definitely. And that kind of, the omega-3s also have anti-inflammatory effects on the body. And when I mean, this is something that's funny, I forget. God, we learned so much in school. It's so true. But I mean, the anti-inflammatory, but another aspect of emotional health is, what we don't realize is brain inflammation. Look, a lot of people are experiencing that without even really knowing it. So having omega-3s in your diet does have an anti-inflammatory effect, not only on everything from the neck down, but from the neck up as well, right? And we don't feel it because we don't have pain receptors in our brain. So we don't know that our brain is inflamed. So ensuring to have some more anti-inflammatory effects on our brain, and to avoid things like having poor memory and lack of concentration, the low moods, that will be helped and reduced by having these anti-inflammatory omega-3s, as well as anti-inflammatory foods, like the typical food stuff, like your greens. Oh my God, like that's fantastic to have in your diet, right? So staying away from processed foods and the takeout foods. And, it's, I think we all know this. I think intuitively we are aware of all of this. And sometimes,
but I don't think we make the connection. Like, it's fascinating what you're saying about inflammation. I mean, I think we've heard, I think people hear about inflammation, but the idea of that extends to your brain, I never even really thought. I mean, I suppose I learned that in school maybe, but it's been so long. It's a really, really good point. And you're right. We don't feel that, and you can't see that, but you absolutely experience the effects of that. So yeah, even though we know we shouldn't eat that stuff, do people, I don't know that people realize, would make that connection between eating too much fast food and brain health, mental health, mood, anxiety. That's really interesting connection.
It really is. So that's super important. And the foods, the foods also that we have, and I'm going to talk about amino acids. So amino acids can be derived, typically amino acids from protein. This is when a lot of people associate animal protein, obviously with amino acids, but we get amino acids from all of our vegetables as well too, right? And those are anti-inflammatory. So we want to consider having a lot more of those greens, a lot more of the cucumber and celery, things that are going to be healing for the body. And amino acids are an important part of brain function. So going back to talking about the brain chemicals, so though we have to consider the whole body, we do still have to consider what's going on and what's being synthesized in the brain, what your brain is actually making, and we have to support it. And some of the amino acids, tyrosine, taurine, GABA, and there's another one I'm missing. Oh, tryptophan, which was one of the big ones. That's one of the big ones. People
know that, right? From turkey.
Yeah, exactly. And the 5-HTP. So, so you're giving your body all of those good things that it requires to synthesize and create those neurotransmitters and those brain chemicals. That can't be ignored, right? I'm not saying that we don't consider all of that, because if it's a whole body approach, then yeah, you have to make sure that you have the appropriate amount of amino acids in your diet in order to support making those neurotransmitters, those happy things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Should we move on from food?
Sure.
Like you say, we could talk about that all day.
I know. Yeah.
Okay. What about exercise? So moving our bodies, how does that, what's the connection there between brain health and movement?
So a lot of people will.
And how much do we have to do? Like, do we have to be killing ourselves at the gym 5 days a week in order to have good brain health? I hope you're going to say no.
Well, okay, so I'm going to say yes and no. So sorry everybody, but it's intensity does matter to a degree, okay, because you're going to create those feel good hormones, but the fact is when you're moving, you're also encouraging blood circulation, which is really also a key component to have good brain health, right? So if you're moving, you're encouraging circulation, you're balancing your glucose, you're decreasing cortisol levels, which can also contribute to those anxious feelings. So exercise and movement plays a key role in helping to manage your stress levels, your emotions. Getting outside is to me, and getting into nature is huge. And if you can do that, then, and if that's available to you, then I encourage that. But it's not always available to everyone, but at least, get out, at least get outside, even if it's in your own neighborhood. And
when it's not minus 15 in February.
I know, although you'll find me outside. You'll find me outside. It's so, we're not meant to be sitting in front of computers all day. We're not meant to be sitting on our sofas binge watching Netflix for like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, whatever happens to be. We are creatures that require movement, and our bodies need that, our brains need that. And for the reasons that I mentioned, the cortisol and the blood flow, and just de-stressing and allowing yourself the opportunity to, kind of be in the moment, and sometimes just physically removing yourself from perhaps an environment that could be contributing to, some poor mental health, like if you're experiencing anxiety, and then removing yourself and then taking a brisk walk is great. Again, intensity can sometimes have even better effect if that is available to you, but it's not available to everyone. So really just move, exercise. If you can get out into nature, that would be fantastic. That'd be great, but certainly get moving. I think it's.
And when you say intensity, do you just mean getting your heart rate up, or do you mean like
getting your heart rate
CrossFit workout?
No.
Okay.
You have to be like doing the hip exercises.
Right.
And, doing. I mean, because the fact of the matter is that can have detrimental effects. Like that could be counterintuitive to what you're trying to do, right? Because doing that, as you know, can raise cortisol levels in the body, and then it contribute to inflammation.
Yeah.
And make you feel worse in the long run. So really, it's it really is balance, right? It's really about some balance, and having some intensity in there could be beneficial. But again, it really depends on what your situation is in your life. If you're highly stressed and you already have high levels of cortisol in your body, you probably don't want to be like going full force on the treadmill for like 45 minutes, it's not probably the best thing for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Love it. Okay. So other than diet and exercise, what are some other things that people might not typically think of when they're thinking about mental health and addressing anxiety, mood, all of that kind of thing? What are some other tips and tools you can suggest?
Yeah. I mean, many of your people, and they come from a place, I think, that they are familiar with, mindfulness practices, grounding themselves. So something that has worked for me, and I was one of those people who kind of poo-pooed this idea at one point. So it just goes to show you can get there, even if it wasn't for you to begin with. Was having a gratitude practice, and actually having a physical gratitude journal, and I have found starting my day like that. And if you, and let me just take a step back. Even if you don't actually physically write something down, though I would encourage it, and I'll explain why in a second. Waking up in the morning, I know I was experiencing the first, as soon as I'm conscious in the morning, the mind, it just starts to go, and you start thinking about all the things, you start to worry. And I would have this pit in my stomach, just agonizing over the day. And I haven't even gotten out of bed yet. I've already had the worst day, and I haven't even put my feet on the ground. So, I mean, how terrible is that? So,
yeah,
taking a moment, and this takes practice. It doesn't just happen. It's going to be easier for some people than it is for others. And it was hard for me. It was very difficult for me. So I understand. For me, at first, all I did was first catch yourself. Start to learn to catch yourself, and realize that you're having the feelings and the thoughts, and don't hate on yourself for it either, because this is something that's going to take time to break out of. This is something that you teach your people, right? Like, we are so accustomed to thinking in a certain way, and it takes time to get yourself out of that. And this is no different. So yeah, I mean, we're so hard on ourselves, and we want things to happen now, and we really have to get out of that and start to tune into who we are in our bodies, and return to that wisdom, and realize that in our lives we have allowed ourselves to get caught up in the everyday, like the social media and the immediacy of everything, that we kind of forget to stop and take a breath. So I feel the gratitude journal, having a moment where in the morning, especially, where you can just say to yourself, stop yourself in the moment, and then say to yourself, I like to start off with, 2 or 3 things that you're grateful for. And it doesn't have to be something grandiose. It doesn't have to be anything beyond appreciating that you have a blanket on top of you, or, how soft your pillow is, or, you have a light that you can turn on, or your fuzzy socks, or what, it doesn't have to be these massive things, right? And that is a great way to start off your day. It starts to set yourself up to think more positively, and just essentially what you're doing is you're having an appreciation of all the good things that you have in your life, as opposed to concentrating on all the bad stuff, which is what we kind of default to naturally, I think. Gotten into those habits. And then for me, I started to incorporate an actual physical book. So I'm not writing, but though if you choose to, if that's available to you, and it makes you feel better, then, journaling is great. I will light a candle. I'll sit at, this little spot in my room, and I'll sit there, and I'll write down, just 5 things. Sometimes, some days there are more things than others, depending on the kind of day, what's going on in my life. But the point is to keep up with it. And it really has, I'll say, allowed me to be able to reset my way of thinking, even when things aren't going very well. And I think that's a really important aspect to consider of our lives, to first of all recognize that you are feeling those negative feelings and thoughts, and you're having them, and not being so hard on yourself, because that's what you've been accustomed to. And then stop yourself and give yourself the opportunity to show some gratitude, express some appreciation to yourself, speak them aloud, say it in your own mind, or write them down. And the more senses that you use, quite often, the more integrated it does become, right?
Yeah.
So if you can get yourself to a place where you can, you'll get out of bed and you'll sit with your journal and actually write it down, and even say it aloud, all the better. And you'll get there. And that's, I think, a huge one.
I love that too, because it's, I mean, I'm a big fan of gratitude, and I teach it as well in my, just having gratitude practice, because it really puts you back in it puts you in the role of creator of your day, instead of just reacting to everything. Often we feel like we're just this ping pong ball, and we're just trying to keep up with our day and life and all the expectations on us and all the responsibilities. And it just feels overwhelming. And we feel like we're not really in control. And I feel like when we start the day like that, it reminds us that we are choosing the kind of day we're going to have, the perception we're going to have of things, the energy we're going to bring into things, how we're going to show up. And so I love that it just gives you back that sense of you have some control over your day, your life, what you do, how you show up. So that's a great practice.
Yeah, it really is. And it does ground us, right? I mean, because when you've got all of these things going on in your mind, it's like, I don't know, it's like, it's difficult for me to explain, except that all these things are just kind of flying about, you just sort of feel like you're floating, like you're saying, like there's this lack of control. So when you bring yourself down and you start your day like that, yes, you're right. It gives a sense of, it does give us a sense of being the creator of our own lives. And that's very empowering. And when you start to incorporate that into your life, it allows you to, move forward incrementally, to make even better choices for yourself, because you have that sense that, oh, wait, I was in this moment, and I was able to shift myself. I did that. No external factors. I was able to do that. And that's incredibly powerful. And that brings us back to, I think that'll bring us back to our own wisdom. And when you have that, then you're also able to share that with other people as well, right? Which is just as important. And that's part of what I try to do. When you're able to support yourself, you're able to support other women and other people a lot more as well, right?
Yeah. I love it. Okay. I'm just going to see if there's any questions. Sorry, I have to look on my phone here before we wrap up a little bit. No, I think we're good. Okay. Awesome. I hope so. Yeah. Okay. You had a little gift you were going to offer to my peoples, that I'm very excited about, because it's a really great tool. So can you talk a little bit about that? And I'll put the link somewhere around here.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I created a guide, a holistic guide for 10 effective strategies, natural strategies to help women, especially. That's where my love lies, where my passion lies. To help them with their anxious moods and their anxious thoughts, and really just start to feel, we were talking, in control of your life and your emotions, and bringing a little bit more peace and joy in their lives. And so like I said, there are 10 strategies in there, and it has a combination of supplementation, lifestyle, and more spiritual practices in there. So I think there's something there for everyone, and for those who want to try a little bit of everything. But don't be overwhelmed. It's, try one thing. It's just, that's what it's meant to be. It's just, it's a tool where, perhaps you can take a look and see where what you can rather incorporate into your life.
Yeah.
And, it's just a free gift from me to you. And it is on my business Facebook page, but yeah, if you can just put on.
Yeah, I will. I'll put the link here somewhere.
I would love that. And I really hope it's helpful. I've incorporated some of those practices as well. And there's so much more. I could have written and written and written.
I know.
so hard. It's so hard. It's probably even longer than it should have been, but I wanted to give as much as I could.
You always have so much great information that,
I love
oh,
it.
wait, hold on. Maybe we have a question here.
Mhm.
Oh, oh, good. Oh, good. Sorry, guys, we can't see the comments while we're talking because we're using a different platform. So anyway, people are just saying that they're loving listening to you. And Michelle says she can't wait to try the gratitudes in the morning, especially because she has a teenage son who's pessimistic and dealing with ADHD and anxiety. So she's looking forward to trying the gratitude practice. So that's great. Anne Marie says, thank you, Tina, for the guide. Can't wait to get my hands on it. Good. Okay, awesome. Yay.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yay. Okay, good. So yeah, I'll make sure that that link is right here for everybody so they can grab that and they can start, like you say, like just there's 10 of them in there, but just, take which ones work for you, try one. And then when you feel good with that, maybe try another one. It's a nice little buffet option.
So much so. I don't want people to overwhelm themselves because if you're already feeling anxious, you're always
it's not more things to do.
Right? Yeah, that's not what it's intended for. It just take one thing, try it out for a little while. Usually, I'd like to say give it a couple of weeks at least, right? Especially when it comes to like supplements and things. But just give yourself an opportunity. Baby steps. It's just the baby steps, and
Love it.
Yeah. So I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm happy to birth this out into the world and give I hope to offer so much more. So
yeah, it's good. It's such important work that you're doing, and it's an area that's been underserved for so long. I know it's coming more into the forefront now of sort of our culture, but there's still so much to be done. And I so love your really holistic approach, your full body approach, your from the neck down approach. It's really, really important. So I'm really excited to share it. So thank you so much for being here, Tina. It was really a joy to hang out with you.
Oh, I loved it. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And thanks for everyone who's watching and live and on the recording. So it was really great being here. Thank
you. Yay. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.